Hi folks, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another episode of my weekly breakdown. This week we're going to talk about week 5, and honestly, after the CTMP story last week, this one's a little bit more spread out. There's no single big category or series coming out on top. There's not really a very bad week either. I do believe it's just a genuinely good and solid week with a few things worth flagging while we're at it. So let's get into it. Right, I do feel like we always start with IMSA one way or another, so let's keep the traditions and start with IMSA. Both Open and Fixed are heading to Interlagos this week. In-game start times 8:30 in the morning, 68 Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius with no chance of rain, and it's a 45-minute sprint race. Timing on this one is perfect because the real Rolex 6 Hours of São Paulo just ran this exact track the past weekend with BMW M-Team WRT taking the win, and it was tight. It was a very nice race if you managed to get a glimpse of it, or maybe you just saw the highlights. I think going and running your own stint around Interlagos this week will hit a bit different. Now, here's the thing about Interlagos, it's short. It's very short. It's shorter than most of the tracks IMSA or WEC visits on the regular, and shorter than most tracks used in the IMSA series here on iRacing. But there's something special about Interlagos that differentiates it from the others. It's got elevation changes all the way around, so with 3 classes of car on it at once, it should be properly demanding rather than just a case of who's got the biggest straight line speed. I don't race multiclass here a huge amount myself, if I'm honest, but every time I have, it's always been one of those tracks where you have to think about where you are on the circuit before you commit to a move. The blind crests, tight, and no runoff to speak of in places. I think it's a good thing for this series. Fingers crossed the traffic actually rewards good decision making this time instead of just turning into a demolition derby, because Interlagos doesn't really give you the room to barge through like some other wider American or European tracks. On car choice, if you're deciding to jump in, Porsche, Mercedes, and McLaren seem to be the ones people are gravitating towards in GT3, and up in GTP, it's mostly a Ferrari and Porsche story. Now, I did go back and look at how this track usually performed for IMSA historically because I didn't want to just assume Interlagos is a safe bet, and it is really not. Really, it's all over the place. In 2023, it pulled over 11,000 entries, but that was the season opener. So that numbers are a bit inflated just from fresh season hype. I wouldn't hold that one up as a fair comparison. Strip that one out and you're still left with a track that's gone anywhere from about 3,000 entries to over 10,000 across the last few seasons, and there's no real pattern to it. It simply swings back and forth. Same rough point in the season, a year apart, 2024 and 2025, and one pulled 3,000 and the other one pulled 10,500. What I will say is, with the real race the past weekend fresh in everyone's mind, I think there's a decent chance this particular week lands on the higher end of that range rather than the lower one. But that's a hunch, really. It's based on timing and not the track's own personal record. My second pick this week, I do believe this one is worth justifying. It's the Supercars at Bathurst Mount Panorama. The start in-game is 9 a.m. local, 66 Fahrenheit or 19 degrees Celsius, no rain, and a 19-lap race. I went and pulled the actual numbers rather than just guessing, and it turns out I was right. Every prior Bathurst round for this series going back to 2021 has sat somewhere between 300 and 1,300 entries, and it averages about 850. Compare that to Interlagos or any other series, and it's not even close. Bathurst is genuinely a small grid track by the numbers, and it always has been. There's no golden year in there where it suddenly popped off, to be fair to the series. That's not really a Bathurst problem specifically. Supercars as a whole doesn't usually pull much past 200 drivers on iRacing's week to week. It's a smaller community compared to GT3s or GT4s, so a low number like that at Bathurst isn't a track failing. It's just the size of what the Supercars are. It's a tough car to drive. But here, I don't believe it really matters. Bathurst is Bathurst. It's the one track this series exists to run on, and in a way, it's the home ground. Also worth saying, later in the year, I do believe it's in October, this specific combo gets a dedicated iRacing special event. So even outside of a normal week 5 slot, this track and this series are clearly built to go together. Even if the grid is a bit thinner than what you like this week, I think you should turn up for this one anyway, purely because of what the track and what the car represents. Some weeks, prestige just wins out over raw numbers, and that's the case here. Now for my third to race pick. This one's not going to jump off the page at you, I'll be honest. It's the Mazda MX-5 Cup by Usingveld, and it's heading to the Nürburgring, the GP layout with the BES and WEC configuration, the one that Formula 1 used back during the COVID era. I didn't pick this one because of the numbers it's going to pull. The advanced Mazda MX-5 Cup has a numerous amount of track that will pull more than the Nürburgring. Even the 24-hour one is going to pull more than this configuration. But here's why I picked it though. In-game start is 11:15 at night, 66 Fahrenheit or 19 degrees Celsius with no rain. To me, that's a proper night session on a layout that don't have floodlighting around most of it. So you're relying on your headlights all the way through. You're going to be out there in the dark with a low power spec car, minimal lighting, which is basically the exact same vibe as doing the Nürburgring 24 hours overnight, but compressed into a 30-minute MX-5 sprint race instead of an actual endurance format. I don't think it's going to be some standout, hugely popular pick this week, but if you ever wanted a taste of what the Nürburgring 24-hour felt like, and you missed it this year, without committing an actual 6-car endurance race team, I think this is about as close as you're going to get on a random Tuesday. I did go back quickly and checked how this exact layout's performed for the series historically, and well, there's not much to go on. Only 2 instances of this specific configurations have been used in the past. Both came under 3,500 entries, which is on the low side for this series, because when the series runs the Nordschleife instead, it's pulled anywhere from 8,000 to over 25,000. So there's clearly a big gap between how people respond to the Nordschleife version versus the Grand Prix layout. 2 data point isn't a lot to hang a firm conclusion on, but it lines up with what I'd expect. This one's a smaller, quieter draw. So don't go in expecting a big grid. Go in for the atmosphere, the dark, no light section, and treat the low numbers as part of the appeal rather than a knock against it. Now let's quickly go for the to avoid section, with my first pick being the IMSA Sports Car Endurance Challenge, which is taking the LMP3s and the GT4s to the Shell V-powered motorsport park at The Bend. 8:50 a.m. start time, 68 Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius with no rain. Now on its own, it's not necessarily a bad combination. The problem is The Bend. It isn't exactly a popular track. I don't even have it. I don't know a lot of people who bought it, and even people who bought it don't really race it. It doesn't make a lot of appearances in a lot of series, and when it pops up somewhere, it's not attracting a lot of people. It's the first time that the IMSA Sports Car Endurance Challenge is going to end up in my to avoid list, and I think this is the one that gets left with the scraps. If you love the Bend, fair enough, go and race it, but I wouldn't expect a healthy split here. My second to avoid pick for this week is the Ringmasters making a comeback in my avoid list after bringing the GT4s to inject some life in this series. We've now gone for the Dallara IL-15. That's an Indy light car, an open-wheel, high-downforce Formula car on the bumpy and twisty Nordschleife. I've said it before that I actually like Ringmasters more when it uses the less obvious, less popular cars, because that's when the series feels like it's doing something different. But there's a difference between unusual and just a bit of a mismatch. I think an open-wheel Formula car with no bodywork protection around the Nordschleife barrier and elevation changes is leaning a bit too far into the second category. It could be a fun novelty if you're curious. I'm not going to tell you to try it, but I wouldn't expect this to pull a healthy field throughout the week. Last to avoid this week, and it's the single-class GT3 Fixed series at Virginia International Raceway, full course, with an 8 a.m. start, 76 Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. Again, no rain. Now, on paper, this looked fine to me, and I did flag it as a to race option initially, So let me explain the change here. Virginia International Raceway full course is narrow, it's a technical track, and once you're actually out there, the passing zones are thin on the ground. Really, just the front straight into turn 1 and maybe the kink before the S's if you fancy your chances, or if you're really alongside. I had a run here against the AI when filming the footage, and found it genuinely difficult to get past cars that were defending. And that's against AI, never mind a full field of humans who all know exactly where the only overtaking spots are, and are defending them properly. I think it adds up to a race where track positions from qualifying ends up mattering more than it sounds. And if you're not right at the front, you could be in for a long, frustrating single-class stint. It's a good track to hot lap, I just don't trust it to produce close racing. Funnily enough, I do think Virginia International Raceway is a great track, but it works better with smaller cars, like the Mazda Global MX-5 Cup, which is rookie-friendly, and also on the calendar this week, although just on the Nord course rather than the full course. Give that track to something skinny and low-powered like the MX-5, and suddenly you've got more road to play with, more places to actually stick a nose down the inside. GT3 cars are just too wide for VIR's full course. Now before we leave, I do have 2 honorable mentions, because it's a very full week. My first pick is the Porsche Cup, both open and fixed, at Spa, with a morning start at 8:05 a.m., 67 Fahrenheit or 19 degrees Celsius, no rain, 11 laps. There's nothing wrong with this at all. Porsche Cup at Spa is always going to be a solid, popular combination, but I wanted to do something different for my to-race pick. I wanted to broaden my picks a little bit from week to week, so that's why the Porsche Cup is not on my to-race list, but it really, really should be. So if you've got time, if you want to race more Spa after the special event, I think you can pick up the Porsche Cup and feel happy about it. And the last one this week, and honestly, this might be one of the picks that I'm most excited to talk about. It's the Creventic Endurance Series running or landing at Spa-Francorchamps GP pits this week. It's a 12-hour long race with a midday start, 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius, and a 41% chance of rain. Now, the reason this one matters is the timing. This is the weekend after the real Spa 24 hours, and if you just come off a rough result there, or you just didn't even get a drive this year, this is basically your redemption round. There's a proper full GT3 field, and compared to the Spa 24 hours, we do have here a GT4 field, so it doesn't feel exactly the same, and there can be traffic to manage, so that's adding to it as well. And if you had to that a chance of rain, almost 50%, throwing that on top, I don't see how this could be a bad race. If Spa didn't go your way this weekend, there's the chance for you to go and do better. So that's week 5 for you. Nothing quite as chaotic as CTMP last week, but it is a solid spread. We have Interlagos, which should be a proper test. Bathurst, as always, is Bathurst. And if you're still thinking about Spa after this weekend, Creventic has got you covered. I would give the IMSA Sports Car Endurance Challenge, the Ringmaster, and the GT3 Challenge Fixed all a miss this week. Anyway, that's me done for this week. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new around here, write in the comments what you're going to race this week, and if I have missed anything, and I'll catch you for the next week's episode. Have a good one, everyone. See ya.